Hey kiddies, it's Triple Feature Tuesday once again, and I was gonna keep going on with fun, happy stuff, but fuck it, Lars von Triple Feature. Also known as Lars von Trier's Depression Trilogy. Also known as a triple feature I'm never going to watch with my parents. Also known as the Charlotte Gainsbourg Fuck Sandwich. Also known as... Like, I don't know. I don't know why I decided to do this, but it did. See, alright. So, Lars von Trier. First things first, Lars von Trier is a Danish filmmaker who has made incredible movies like Dogville and Dancer in the Dark, but for the last 7 or 8 years has made some of the most relentlessly depressing, mind-bending, horror-esque, just mess movies that are really, really incredible. I hate to say it, but I like every single movie on this triple feature, which says nothing good about me. Lars has seemingly found his muse in English/French actress Charlotte Gainsbourg, who is really something. I mean, this woman can pretty much do anything, and does throughout all of these movies. I'll get into detail as we go along, but she is really something to see, and you see all of it. I wasn't kidding. You really can't show these to anybody older that you respect and or is a relation. They're really reprehensible, and the nudity is just beyond. And, if it were just nudity, that'd be one thing, but it's nudity and people doing horrible, horrible things to each other with the nudity. So, our menu is going to include Antichrist, Melancholia, and Nymphomaniac. Parts 1 and 2, because it's really just one movie. I don't know why we have to actually act like they're two separate movies. It's just a long movie that they split up to make it more palatable to the public. So I had seen and owned Melancholia, which is really, I think it's just one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. It's really incredible. And last year, for the Tom's Friends Hate Him month, the Shia LaBeouf triple feature originally featured Nymphomaniac, which I watched all the way through, the extended version, which is 4 hours plus, or it's just 4 hours. Unfortunately, it didn't really fit with the other Shia LaBeouf movies, so I went with the Wia LaBeouf sequel triple feature. But, I still had that in my head. So this week, I watched Antichrist. And man, everything you've heard about Antichrist is true, except for the misogyny part. This movie really isn't misogynist at all, which was a pleasant surprise. It's actually anti-misogynistic, which would probably just be feminist, throughout the whole film, which is really something. So, the plot of Antichrist is essentially Willem Dafoe and Charlotte Gainsbourg are a married couple with no names. It's all just he and she. And they, while having very graphic sex in the beginning of the film, their son, Nick, accidentally walks out of a window and dies. She is inconsolable. He is feeling it too, but, man. In order to try to help her through her unbearable grief, Willem Dafoe is a psychotherapist, and tries to put her through immersion therapy by bringing her to the place that she fears the most, which is the family cottage in the woods, which they call Eden. So that's the plot. What happens is a series of really just horrible, horrible things happening to a fairly interesting couple. This is one of the things that I love about Willem Dafoe, and eventually I'm going to nail down a triple feature for this, is you can put him in any movie. Like, you can put him in the silliest, most low-budget piece of crap, and Willem Dafoe will give you all the Willem Dafoe that you want. But you can also put him in the most intellectual films, and he is still an incredible actor, as evidenced here. Willem Dafoe's character, is not a jerk. He's doing something he shouldn't. You shouldn't be treating your spouse medically or psychologically. It's just you're too close to it. But Trier goes out of his way to show that he's not being a total scumbag about it. Like, he genuinely cares about her, while she wants to help self-medicate and ignore the feelings that she has through sex. He is refusing to have sex with her throughout the whole film because they're in therapy mode, which is something. Charlotte Gainsbourg, man, there's really nothing she can't do. She just goes for it. I mean, it's just, how do you portray dealing with possibly the worst thing that can happen to you if you're a parent? And we've got the screaming, the self-harm, the crying, just the mood swings, everything. And everything is completely plausible and makes sense. Up until that last half hour, 40 minutes of it, in which it turns into a full-throttle, Shining-esque horror movie, where, as it turns out, the person you've been with is completely insane. Yeah, I'm not going to tell you which one is which, but man, they go after each other, and they do really, really terrible things to each other. Men, I will warn you, there is not the ultimate horrible thing that can happen to a man's genitalia, but there's a big block of wood just shoved right into there, and I gotta tell you, it hurt me to look at it. But then again, on the other hand, Charlotte Gainsbourg performs one of the worst things you can do to yourself as a woman. I mean, I'm not gonna pretend that there is a right way to circumcise a woman, but I'm pretty sure she's still doing it wrong. But oh boy, you get to see it in dramatic close-up, because man, this movie does not mess around at all. It's oh god. I think you should watch it. I don't think you have to watch it, but it is really something if you go ahead and watch it. One of the fun things about this triple feature, all 3 movies are on Netflix, so if you have Netflix, this is lurking there somewhere. By the end of the movie, you're not exactly sure what is real and what is not. I would assume both characters are hallucinating very strongly throughout, but it's really horrifying and really engaging, which makes the horrifying even worse. So I highly recommend, and that's where we're starting. Oh my god. Fortunately, nothing is going to be as, full throttle, scary, disturbing as Antichrist. But on the other hand, in the next movie, Melancholia, we deal with the literal end of the world. Not metaphorical at all. Another planet, a rogue planet, the titular Melancholia, crashes right into planet Earth. And you're there for it. And it's horrible. This movie does not let you not confront the inevitability of all of our deaths. For the second half of the movie. The first half of the movie is all about a wedding reception. Lars von Trier. Very, very, very interesting. The movie is split up into 2 halves. Justine and Claire. 2 sisters played by Kirsten Dunst as Justine and Charlotte Gainsbourg as Claire. First half, Justine has just gotten married, and we spend the whole night, or the whole half, on the night of her reception at her sister Claire's estate. Claire is married to John, played by Kiefer Sutherland. That's one of the great recurring things. You have these really great performances by actors that it's been sort of, not necessarily easy, but comfortable to sort of write off as when they're in a movie they do this one thing, like Willem Dafoe in Antichrist. In this one, Kiefer Sutherland, really something. Really, really great. And that's, tough, because Kirsten Dunst and Charlotte Gainsbourg are going for it throughout the whole movie. Getting ahead of myself. Kirsten Dunst has just gotten married to Alexander Skarsgård, son of Stellan Skarsgård, who plays her boss in this movie. We are having the reception at Claire and John's estate / golf course. Very peculiar. It's a very, very lavish wedding reception that they are late for, and tensions are running high with everybody. Pretty much everybody sort of hates everybody else, except for Claire. Charlotte Gainsbourg loves her husband, her son, and Justine. Justine loves Claire, and probably John and her nephew. But everybody else is sort of antagonistic to everybody else, including, by the end of this half, the bride and the groom, because, as it turns out, Justine is severely depressed. And though she is trying to keep it together for her very naive husband, she really just can't, and the whole thing falls apart right as it's starting. The two halves are pretty much night and day, and this half has just an incredible cast. The aforementioned Stellan Skarsgård is in there. John Hurt and Charlotte Rampling play Justine and Claire's estranged parents. Jesper Christensen plays the sort of the butler, all-around handyman of John and Claire. And tying it all together is Udo Kier stealing the show as the wedding planner for Justine and her husband. It's great. Yeah, at one point he declares that Justine has ruined his incredible wedding, and he shuns her throughout the night. And so you'll see him. He doesn't have a lot of lines, but you'll see him in the background, and he'll see her, and then walk by like this to make sure that she is, adequately shunned. But it's basically just something that really should be beautiful and is miserable for everybody, but it's still very lavish to look at and wonderful. That's the first half. Second half is all about Claire, and Claire dealing with her depressed sister, her, well-meaning but mildly douchey husband, and the end of the world, because there is a planet, Melancholia, a rogue planet that's been hidden by either the sun or Jupiter for the longest time, but is now seemingly on a collision course with Earth. It's kind of 50-50 throughout, 3/4 of this half. There's all these scientists saying no, all these scientists saying yes. Kiefer Sutherland is an amateur astronomist in the film, and he thinks, no, everything's going to be fine. And you get these really just gorgeous sequences where Melancholia buzzes the planet, but, misses, so everything's great. Until it turns out, nope, it's come back! And all throughout it, Justine is swinging between so depressed she can't move and spouting off dark wisdom about how mankind is doomed, and rightfully so. And then the world ends. But all throughout it, Charlotte Gainsbourg is just killing it in terms of the roller coaster ride of emotions that one would go throughout this whole thing, as is Kirsten Dunst. I mean, she is her character is much more one note, but she is just nailing it. And so we have this kind of lull in the middle of the triple feature. Despite the world ending explosively, this is a much more straightforward and palatable, if, depressing film. As opposed to Nymphomaniac, which lives up to his name. This movie is fairly picaresque, meaning it is episodic, and really the main character, played by Charlotte Gainsbourg as an older woman, and Stacey Martin as a younger woman, is really just a vehicle for these episodes. Try to think of like Tom Jones or Huck Finn, but with a lot more fucking. So we see a lot of actors from the previous films pop up in this one. So Joe, played by Charlotte Gainsbourg and Stacey Martin, is found by Stellan Skarsgård, beaten within an inch of her life. And so he brings her in, and she tells the libidinous tale of her life, starting with, early encounters leading up to the present. The two seemingly most important male relationships she has in the whole film are her father and Jerome. Her father is played by Christian Slater, which, much like Kiefer Sutherland and Willem Dafoe, really just steals all the scenes he's in. He's just really paternal and wonderful, and doing it with an English accent, which he has seemingly mastered after years of working on his Will Scarlet. Utterly charming whenever he's on the screen. And the other man, Jerome, is played by Shia LaBeouf. Now, give you a little frame of mind of Shia LaBeouf in this film. The director, Lars von Trier, asked him and pretty much everybody involved to send like a short video or pictures of them naked to be in the movie, mainly because, hey, it's called Nymphomaniac. Just about every scene has sex. This has more sex per scene than I think David Cronenberg's Crash, which, if you recall, substituted dialogue for intercourse. Shia LaBeouf, always willing to go that extra mile, sent Lars von Trier a video of him having sex with his girlfriend, graphically, as he is a douchebag. Jerome, it really, I mean, credit where credit's due, Shia LaBeouf's really good at playing a douchebag, and Jerome is a pretty serious douchebag throughout the whole film. Again, there's not really a lot of plot until, say, the very end. It's really just bouncing from episode to episode. So we see young Joe just going out and having fun, getting older and trying to settle down with Jerome, and that doesn't exactly work out. We have like a nice little callback to Antichrist, where her, while she's out with Jamie Bell having sadomasochistic sessions, her son almost walks out of a window, but luckily Jerome is there to save the kid, where neither of them did an Antichrist. Willem Dafoe does pop up towards the end as a mob enforcer type character that Joe ends up working for, because she's got to, use these nymphomaniac skills for something. But we get these really great performances. Stellan Skarsgård as the sounding board for Joe takes a lot of expository dialogue and makes it very, very charming and interesting. Uma Thurman plays the jilted wife of one of Joe's lovers, who Joe had told this husband that they couldn't be together, like, for real, because he was married, so he up and left his wife, played by Uma Thurman. And she comes in, and for 15 minutes has a nervous breakdown, and it's really astonishing and something to see. Like, that's the thing. In between all of the very, very graphic sex, it's weird. Like, Lars von Trier, like, all the sex is simulated, but not, because while the legitimate actors are pretending to have sex, Lars von Trier has, through digital wizardry, put in the images of pornographic actors having actual sex. So it's like, I don't want to get into I don't want to explain how it looks, but it's going to look like they're having sex, but technically they're not, so hooray. But in between, you have some really incredible performance, like Uma Thurman. Willem Dafoe popping in at the end is great. Jesper Christensen pops up in there. Christian Slater, really something when he's on the screen, as is Charlotte Gainsbourg, who is the least inhibited actress I have ever seen on film. Between Antichrist and Nymphomaniac, the things she's willing to do for Lars von Trier and for the movie, I can't think of anything that she wouldn't be willing to do. And I say that with all the respect and admiration that I possibly can. She is incredible throughout all of these movies. And they're all worth watching. But considering that it would be something of 8 hours of this Danish crazy person venting all of his psychological issues on your poor fragile brains, I'm not sure anybody should ever do it. But these movies should all be watched at some point, I think, by everybody, because hell, I mean, I'll admit, I enjoyed all of them, and I was not expecting to enjoy any of them. They're all well shot, they're all well written, they're all well acted. It's just the subject matter borders on exploitation film, the likes of which we haven't seen since 70s Grindhouse. So yeah, maybe you should just sit and take like a Saturday and sit and watch them all and, drink the entire time. Drinking helps make you not want to turn to this. So we'll just put this away, and I'm going to pour myself a Sambuca and cola, and I'll see you guys next week with maybe something happy, maybe something not. I'm feeling kind of volatile and fickle. So, yeah. See you then.